Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IRSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Tuesday, June 24th. And there is a man skipping around Omaha, Nebraska, and is our site manager, Mike Frank. He was talking about like June gloom, a couple weeks ago with recruiting. In fairness to him, the news didn't look as good. It brightened up considerably since then. Notre Dame has landed Joey O'Brien, Khary Adams, and Preston Fryzel, and that train looks like it's going to continue to roll on as well. We're going to have some updates on Elijah Golden and Kedron Finley coming up later on the show, but we're going to talk about those commitments. The roster, Notre Dame's updated roster, came out with updated heights and weights. We're going to talk about some of those, right? And as a caveat to that whole conversation, the weights especially are not always the most accurate, but we're going to talk around it. If like Charles Jagusaw, for example, is listed as 333. That's plus or minus a couple of pounds. That's a big human being, and we can talk about that. So that's going to be the show today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you hear, please hit that like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so whenever it is we are going live. The links to the podcast are in the description below. And as always, the show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang. You've seen ESQ on all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches with over a decade of making the best custom clothing available. ESQ will help you look and feel your best in 2025. From a perfect fitting suit or sport coat, shirt, or bomber jacket, or the perfect tuxedo for wedding season, check out Ge's amazing work at esqclothing.com. Book an appointment to upgrade your wardrobe today. Mention ISD and get 10% off your entire purchase. That's esqclothing.com. Jamie, Matt had an update on the board about Kedron Finley and some things where, this was, I guess, Sunday during the visit. Said there were some positive things trending in Notre Dame's direction regarding that recruitment. And I was wondering, maybe Texas, their official clothing sponsors like Men's Warehouse or something, and it just couldn't stand for it for the Finley family. It's not how they roll. They're an ESQ family, so we're gonna have to monitor that situation. Jamie, it's all happening. John Mackerel, thank you for the super chat. Love the show and all the great insight. I appreciate your attendance, John. Hopefully you've hit that subscribe, hit that like, and all those things. The Hit and Hustle crew is here. That's right. All right, Jamie. You know what? I want to start with Preston Fryzel. He's committed to Notre Dame. It's a big commitment for the tight end room. They needed to get that going. There is, I think we thought that Evan Jacobson might already be in the class, but he has yet to enter the class. And Notre Dame still waits on Ian Premer, who is famously, tight-lipped about his plans and what he wants to do. We've both been high on Fryzel, and I want to go a little bit more into depth about why that is. I think that people expect a Notre Dame show or whatever it might be to see a 3-star prospect, and of course they're going to pump him up or whatever it might be. But I want to go a little bit more into depth about why I say this about this particular prospect. And as always, here at Hit and Hustle, rankings are a sham unless they're Jamie U's rankings. Then they're good. But rankings are a sham. They don't really matter to me. It's just about potential. And so I want to put up some tape on Fryzel, and you can go in depth a little bit about this. Is when I watch him play, first of all, you see some like legitimately good receiver traits here, right? Like the ability to beat the jam, the ability to get high and high point the ball. That's really good. But on a play like this here, where he's out working out of the slot, beats the safety, he gets over the top. I want everyone to watch how he extends here as he's in the open, right? The stride length, the way that he's able to accelerate, right? When I watch that, I see a guy who is at the moment not very physically developed in terms of, his physique, right? He's a thinner guy. He doesn't weigh as much as he's going to. And you can see where a recruiting service doesn't really know how to treat him, right? Like, is this a wide receiver? Is this a tight end? Like, how does he fit in as an inline player, right? To me, here's another example of him kind of pulling away. And you look at the stride length, like this is a runner. When I watch him run, I see kind of like a sprinter style there. And you see a long speed guy who's able to accelerate away. When he gets older, when he gets into a football program, when he gets into a strength training program, that sort of thing is only going to be enhanced. Whatever speed he's at now, he is only going to get faster, right? Because look how long he is. That's another thing. Like, he has long arms, he has long legs, he's a long strider. Like, that stuff lends itself to putting on muscle and then continuing to build speed. Build, when I say build speed, I mean get faster as you put on the weight, as opposed to like someone who puts on weight and gets a little bit slower. Like, for example, like Drake Bowen, right? Like, he is not a long strider. He is someone that puts on weight. He might lose a little bit of that long speed, but the burst is going to be there, right? So that's the trade-off for him. For Fryzel, I see a long-limbed player, someone who, when he gets out in the open, when he's in college, he's really going to be able to separate. And there's been a lot of conversations about Tyler Eifert. That's what happened with Eifert. He got into Notre Dame. He got into a weight program, and suddenly you see a guy who is separating away from DBs. He's separating away from corners and safeties and linebackers. So, right. So that's why I feel so strongly about him. Wanted to get your thoughts on that, because when I evaluate him as a player, that's kind of where my excitement comes from. I feel like he's going to be a big time player because of, what I just talked about.
Well, there's a very few players that get slower, regardless of adding weight once they get into college, because most of these guys aren't, with the exception of a few like track guys who, have already trained at a certain level. Most of the guys get faster because they just get stronger. They get more explosive. Yeah. They're able to do this stuff. That's why you see guys who have like a 28-inch vert, and then you're like, man, this guy jumped 38 at the combine. He only jumped 28 in high school. It's like, you don't have that strength. Some of these guys haven't done squats. Some of these guys haven't done a whole bunch of different exercises to help create quick twitch muscles and, explosiveness. And that's definitely part of it. But I mean, I totally see a guy that I don't care really what he ends up weighing. I don't really see someone who's going to be 260. Who cares? He doesn't have to be 260. He does not have to be 260 pounds. He doesn't have to be even 250 pounds. He can be 240, 245, and he'll be a bigger version of the guy he is now. And like you said, probably faster. Mm-hmm. And a matchup problem, because he already understands how to use his size to create leverage against defensive backs, to create separation, and he can run. He's someone who is probably more dangerous after the catch, just with his speed, than most of the tight ends that they've signed in a really long time. And I think with someone like Michael Mayer is a perfect example of kind of what you were talking about, of like, he's not a super long-limbed guy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, extremely, great tight end, obviously but came in, got better and has gone better, but he wasn't going to make the same kind of gains in terms of like, he came in at like 240. He was pretty jacked. He wasn't going to be like 265 and jacked. He just didn't have the frame to do that. Where this is a kid, he's going to just put on weight. You're 16, 17 years old. You're going to add that weight naturally, just over time. That is going to happen for him. So I just look at what he can do as a receiver, and then also too how tight ends are used these days, period. Mitchell Evans was like, first of all, a big dude who obviously can play in line, 260 something pounds. Half of his snaps in the slot.
Yeah.
Or you look at him against Penn State, catches a big back shoulder play where he's going against the corner 1-on-1 on third down, right? That's exactly what I kind of see for Fryzel, is him doing that kind of stuff, but being better at that than Evans in terms of just being faster. being faster and being a little bit more athletic than Evan. So, and I do think, like, I mean, Eifert was my comp for him, right? Eifert and Laporta, right? Were the two guys that I said that, he could be. And I really do think, for anyone who thinks, like, because I know, like, and I don't have any problem with people who think that, like, they ask the question of whether or not what this guy is going to be, because there's always that. I mean, so much is dependent on how much the guy's going to work, but as long as the guy's going to work to do it, like, then what is holding him back from doing that, right? Like, there really isn't anything, because you're going to go to a place that features the tight end at Notre Dame. You're going to go to a place that is going to teach you, like, how to block, how to play in line, how to do all these things. And they're going to do different things to move you around and exploit matchups. And I mean, Mike Denbrock helped develop Tyler Eifert, right? Mike Martin was, the general manager of Notre Dame, was on the staff when they drafted Sam Laporta. Like, Mike Martin was the guy who drafted him. Iowa was their guy. He's the top guy. And everyone could say Notre Dame's tight end U. Iowa is right up there with Notre Dame, right? Yeah. I would say it's probably Iowa and Notre Dame, if you're going to say, I don't know how many exactly we're talking in terms of, like, you can say this amount of draft picks, whatever, but basically every one of their starting tight ends, just like Notre Dame, gets drafted. And they got a bunch of guys who are dudes in the NFL from Iowa playing tight end. Most of those guys didn't come in close to finished products. They came in exactly like Fryzel. That's what Laporta was. He was a big receiver. So I think he's got a sky-high ceiling. I gave him a pretty high grade. I gave him a grade of 92. I think he's, he's a 4-star kid to me. I think he's going to go way up, as, time goes on too, based on more film and all that too. And I really just think, like, probably because he was someone who wasn't blowing up sooner, that people you tend to be kind of slow in, like, overreacting to, like, giving a guy, like, bumping him up to what he should be immediately. But I think that's going to get corrected, and he is going to be pretty highly rated by the time the process is over.
Yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen, and I want to kind of clarify, like I think he's gonna, like, when I say speed gains, I mean relative to competition. So, like, everyone gets faster, like you said. Mitchell Evans is faster than like he was when he came out, or Eli Raritan, right? They're faster than they were when they were freshmen in college or seniors in high school. But I think Fryzel has that kind of speed where it's like, when he gets into a weight room, that speed will enhance higher than kind of the normal gains that a college player would. Like, I think his physical makeup is set up to really thrive in a college, situation, kind of like Leonard Moore, right? Kind of like Will Fuller did, guys who kind of made jumps. Like, I think Preston Fryzel could see a pretty big jump athletically as he grows and becomes stronger. So, and like you said, like, he's in a situation with a coaching staff and a school that knows how to enhance the tight end position. So that's why I'm excited about him. Like, he's rated lower by the services than someone like Evan Jacobson. I just think he's I think Fryzel is a better tight end prospect. Now, they have different skill sets, right? Like, Jacobson's more of an inline guy. Like, he's going to be better at some things. But, like, the things that we want the modern tight end to be able to do, like, Fryzel is, in my opinion, more equipped and more, adapt. I would say more likely to kind of achieve those things. Different kind of players. Like, if Notre Dame lands Evan Jacobson, that's a coup for them, right? Like, it's a good pickup. I just think Fryzel, I personally, I don't, how people can think of it however they want, but I think of him as, like, a bigger get than someone like Evan Jacobson would be, just because of the skill set that I think he has. Which, again, isn't anything against Evan Jacobson. It's just, that's kind of how I feel about it. Joey O'Brien and Khary Adams. It's huge. You can't. It's almost like you can't even undersell it really or overstate it. It's just so big. The skill sets that these two guys have, and I'm going to put up the graphic of the 2-year class that Notre Dame has put together at defensive back. You got Joey O'Brien here, Aiden Pouncey, Khary Adams, Ethan Long, Jadon Blair, Mark Zachary, Dallas Golden, Creed Thomas, and Chasen Smith. They could add one more with Nick Reddish. Notre Dame is trending for him as well. Jamie, there's so much talk about, Joey O'Brien could play corner. He could, and he absolutely could, in my opinion. He absolutely could. And maybe he would if they didn't have the Dallas Goldens and the Mark Zacharys and the Creed Thomases and the Chasen Smiths in the class. Maybe he would in that situation, but they absolutely don't need him to because of the way they've recruited the rest of those positions. Another thing about this photo, and you just kind of look at it, look at the length, Jamie, and just the size of these players.
These guys don't look like DBs.
It's just, the Aiden Pouncey and Joey O'Brien, these are monsters. Jadon Blair is just the size. And that is the thing to me that has really, risen in the last couple of cycles. You think of Notre Dame's best just corners, right? Like the Ben Morrison, Leonard Morris. Ben Morrison is even the biggest guy, but like you look at the Alohi Gilman and Jalen Elliott, it's like these are not small, but they're not big. Like they don't have that size. They don't have that intimidating size, right? You look at Julian Love, not the biggest guy. You look at Troy Pride, not the biggest guy, right? Then Kyle Hamilton comes along, and obviously he's called the pterodactyl, right? So he's super imposing, and you see what that does for a defense. And I just think Joey O'Brien specifically is compared to Kyle. You compare, the closest comp you can have to Kyle Hamilton. You said Kyle Hamilton might be a better prospect for reasons that we've kind of gone over. The difference for me is when you look at Kyle Hamilton's, I think, most impactful season, just in terms of what it meant for the overall defense, was in 2019 as a freshman when he had Alohi Gilman and Jalen Elliott playing next to him. He finally had some NFL caliber players, or it was the kind of the only time next to him he had NFL caliber players. And so when you look at Joey O'Brien and you look at Aiden Pouncey and Khary Adams and the rest of them, when you put that type of talent around talent, that's when it all enhances, because you can't just worry about one guy. I think that's why Xavier Watts is able to do the things that he's able to do. Because look, he's playing next to Adon Schuler, and his corners are Christian Gray and Ben Morrison and Leonard Moore. And that just wasn't the case during the Kyle Hamilton era, and it is now. I think all of these guys that we're looking at on the screen enhance each other as much as they enhance, the defense individually. And that, to me, is the story here. They all enhance each other, and they all make themselves the best version of what they can be, and then the defense can be. That's kind of my takeaway from what all this means. I'm just kind of curious to get your thoughts on that.
No, I 100% agree, because I think if you look at where Notre Dame is now and where they were last year, one of the reasons that they were able to kind of be as good on the back end as they are, obviously, when you have guys like Leonard Moore could step in for a Benjamin Morrison, and you could have that. And obviously they would have had probably 4 corners that you would have felt comfortable playing. Mickey opts out and Morrison gets injured. But one of the things that they had was Rod Hurd was kind of an unsung player, because he was a guy who could play some nickel, could come in and play safety, and played it well whenever he stepped in. And just having that extra guy that you can do things and you can kind of move things around. And now I think this year they're going to have more options at safety. I don't know if they're going to have anyone who's close to Xavier Watts. Like, probably not. Like, they're probably not going to have somebody who's playing at that All-American caliber of level. But I think they probably have like 4 safeties that they'll probably feel really good about, that they can play. And that you can do different things, especially when it comes to like sub packages or certain matchups that you want to play certain teams. I think at corner this year, because like, you see Carson Hobbs' development, and you obviously have Devontae Smith at nickel as well. And who knows with one of these freshmen who's going to play, you can do like a ton of different things with them and what you want to do in terms of like, can Hobbs play outside? He can play a little bit of nickel. Is he going to be a guy that maybe he becomes the dime when you go into sub packages? Well, think about all these guys who are young. Almost every single one of those guys, and other than Jalen Stroman's the only guy who is done.
Yeah.
Next year, like that's it for him, and obviously he hasn't even played for Notre Dame yet. Everybody else is going to be back for 2026, unless they decide to leave or whatever. But but I doubt that most of those guys are going to be there. You got like Tay Johnson and Luke Talich and these guys going to be there for a while. And then you're adding all of these guys on top of it. And, you have like a Blair, and you have, Ethan Long, and you have Zachary and Golden and Thomas. And now you can just do so many different things where you say, well, Thomas, I mean, he's a really good player. But I don't know if he's going to play at corner this year. And, we like the corners. Well, maybe we do want to shift him to safety. And we want to start working him there.
Yeah.
You don't have to get into a situation where like, man, you're desperate to play guys and we got to fill in spots there. It's just a completely different scenario. And then all of a sudden, like Notre Dame could be in a spot 2 years from now where whoever their third safety is probably going to be just an absolute stud.
Yeah.
And just like you said with Kyle Hamilton in 2019, because I think that's what really like unlocked that defense and made it like that defense was better than the 2018 defense. I know the team wasn't as good, but the 2019 defense was better. They finished higher in DF plus. Yeah, I think they rank statistically higher in just about every single category. They just lost the 2 games, and that's pretty much the difference. But on third down, they were just, they were top 20 on third down that year, but they were just like elite on third down against the pass. Like we're like top 5 in like passer rating against. And it was just a nightmare because they had the pass rushers. They had all these different pass rushers they can match up. And then you had Hamilton adding on to what they already had at safety, where you can say, okay, well, he can just be a robber here and he can go and play this and take this away. Or, oh, guess what? He can come and match up and he can go against a slot here, or he can match up with the tight end one-on-one here. And when you just have that kind of versatility, there's just so many different things. It makes the defense coordinator's job so much easier.
Yeah.
And that's, and if we're also looking at it from like a long-term view, and everybody agrees that Mike Mickens has done a tremendous job, at Notre Dame, and people want to see him stay long-term, it's tough to walk away when you have all this talent there. And so unless he gets a defensive coordinator job, I don't think he's going to walk away, even if like maybe he, didn't feel great about not being promoted.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's like, there's a spot where he's going to go to right away where he's going to feel probably as good, because these are his top guys. These are the guys he wanted. So
he definitely wanted Joey O'Brien bad, and I know that for kind of a fact. I mean, obviously it's self-evident, but like he really wanted him, and this goes all the way back to like December, January. It was a commitment he really wanted. He really wanted to land this player. Like you said, you want to coach him. Gosh, you land him, you want to coach him. Right. I mean, as good as the class was last year, I mean, Khary Adams, Joey O'Brien, Aiden Pouncey, Chasten Smith. I mean, you don't want to coach these guys. Like, of course you do. Right. I want to be clear about something. There's some comments in the chat. Alohi Gilman, great player. He is a great player. He's a multi-year starter in the NFL. He was just extended by the Chargers. Right. He was a low pick. That's a great football player. I'm not, Julian Love, Troy Pride. These are very, very good football players. I'm just talking about when you can add the size onto great players like that, it just makes a huge difference. I mean, Jamie knows, like, when you're on a defense and you've got size and skill, it just, everything is harder on offense. Everything is. The windows are smaller. The passing lanes are just non-existent, right? That's Kyle Hamilton's superpower. He can get to wherever he wants, and he has that length. Like, you just can't get the ball past him. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about.
Hold on. I just want to jump in here because Greg Wasserman is in here just trying to pee in everybody's Cheerios for some reason. I don't know why, because he's usually in the chat. I don't see him being overly negative all the time. But I notice he's like, well, they need a defensive tackle and wide receivers. Well, I mean, we're going to get to those guys in a second.
But it just so happened that this last weekend they landed the DBs that they badly needed and wanted, and that everybody wanted. So that's what we're talking about. I mean, look, we feel great about where Notre Dame stands with Elijah Golden. We just do. Go ahead.
Well, and I was just going to say too, because his other thing about the portal era, it's like, yeah, of course, guys can leave. And Kennedy Urlacher left. But you also recruit well enough, because the reason why he left is because, man, he wasn't going to play. And it was because a guy like Tay Johnson was better than him in spring. And then it was
by the way, 6'2".
Yeah. So, of course, guys are going to leave. But also, too, notice how there weren't a ton of Kennedy Urlachers. And you know what? In different years, they are going to have more guys leave. But look at the track record of guys have left. Very few of the guys, other than the guys who were like grad transfers who've went and played an opportunity. So last year, Correll was a good player for NC State, right? And Clarence Lewis was a good player for Syracuse. Okay, those guys graduated, they contributed to Notre Dame, fine. And you're going to get some guys like Sam Pendleton who leave early and all that. Of course, that is going to happen. But the point is you have enough of these guys that, yes, some guys will leave, but the guys who stay are the best guys, and they're going to be studs. It's not like guys are leaving that aren't that are like your frontline guys. That's not been a problem at Notre Dame, and I don't really see it being a problem anytime soon. They've been just great at. I mean, the culture is great. People like to play for the coaches, so it's not really a thing that I think it's not something that people should kind of bring up as like, man, this is like a really this is a terrible thing that's going on. It's going on at some schools for sure. It hasn't been a big problem at Notre Dame, and until it becomes a big problem in Notre Dame, it's just like looking for doom, the rain clouds coming, and no, I don't really think anyone needs to bring it up.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of roster retention, I mean, the fact that they held Jadarian Price is someone the fact that they hung on to him, he could go somewhere and get 220 carries, but he stayed at Notre Dame to get his 100 or 120 or 110 or whatever it might be, because he believes in what they're doing, right? And he believes in Notre Dame, and he believes in Marcus Freeman, and he believes in the program. I mean, it's just like Joey O'Brien said. I mean, he said it. I trust Marcus Freeman with my life. And now, obviously, that's a little hyperbolic, but what he's saying is I trust him with my career. And that's a lot of these guys do, because look at how they stuck around. How did they not lose anyone from that running back room? There is so much talent there, and there's just numbers, but they didn't. And so that's a credit to Marcus Freeman, obviously, but obviously the belief, it bears itself out. People talk about culture all the time. It's borne itself out. Steve Angeli stayed around when he could have gone because he believed in what they were trying to do during the playoff run. I'm speaking about. So that's as good an example as you can come up with. We feel good about Elijah Golden at defensive tackle. Look, when there's positive comments during an official visit that Kedron Finley is on with Texas, You feel good about that, right? You like that. Decisions have not been made. And, we just have to wait it out. As always with recruiting, things can change very quickly. We've seen it change quickly in Notre Dame's favor. It could very easily change the other way as well. Feel good about Devin Fitzgerald. Feel good about Braden Robinson. Nick Reddish, we'll see. Feel good about that. I mean, Mike said it yesterday on Power Hour. They really could land everybody that they really want. It's very possible. I think the biggest questions right now are who's going to be that second tight end. You feel like it was going to be Evan Jacobson. He hasn't popped yet. We don't know where Premer stands. But it's just, look, Notre Dame had to put it in poker terms, like they had to hit an inside straight, and it looks like they have, and they've made it happen. And by the way, this is why at the time when Chad Bowden left for USC, my kind of line was it was a bigger deal for USC than it was for Notre Dame. And obviously he's done a lot good for USC in their class. They're taking a lot of players, but they've got a bunch of top end guys too. Let's see if they can hit on to him. It's been a problem, but obviously that's made a big deal for them. But as you see with Notre Dame, there was more going on, and there was more going right, and there was more that could have been enhanced within that recruiting operation. It looks like they've done so. So it's credit to them. Credit to Carter Allman, who is, a lot less kind of public in his contributions. But, I mean, you just have to look at, apparently he's been very, very good relationship with Joey O'Brien. And so that's obviously a huge deal for them. So, look, we're just going to have to continue to monitor the recruiting situation. On Thursday, just a heads up, we're going to have Christian on the show to talk about where things are with Golden, Finley, Fitzgerald, the rest of the class, and how things have kind of come together. So we're going to have Christian on the show on Thursday. So everyone's going to be excited about that. Another heavy recruiting show there. Jamie, I do want to talk about Devin Fitzgerald real quick. You guys were talking about him. You and Mike were talking about him yesterday. Also, if you missed Power Hour, check it out. It's on our YouTube channel for Irish Sports Daily. You're talking about Devin Fitzgerald and how he plays fast. There was a play on here I want to highlight. It's kind of a good example of it. Here's a good blocking play. But you talk about how someone plays faster than maybe their 40 time would indicate, right? And, obviously his father is one of the best wide receiver tacticians you're ever going to have. There's going to be a slant route here. I believe it's on this play.
Yeah,
he's going to win inside. Why does this play happen, Jamie?
Well, he wins, obviously.
He wins inside.
He wins inside. So that's like the start of it. But you see him like separate and accelerate in a way that isn't part of, like, obviously, running a 40, whatever, that part of it. But I always thought too, like, that was something that is the thing that actually reminded me the most of his dad, because I don't know what I don't believe Larry Fitz ran, an elite 40 time. Like, I think he was like,
I'll check it out.
I think he was maybe like a low 4.5 guy. I don't believe he was like a 4.4 guy. He was obviously just incredible ball skills, tracked the ball probably better than anyone that's ever existed, but
4.63, Jamie.
4.63. There you go.
At the combine.
At the combine. Yet he was still a high pick. You know why? Because when you threw on the film, you're like, this guy runs away from people. He runs away from people. Kind of like Jerry Rice. Like, same kind of thing, right? Where, like, Jerry Rice famously ran like a 4.7, right? Like, and played at a lower level, yet the Niners took him in the first round, and he cooked guys just like he did, at that time 1AA, but now FCS level, right? So there's something to that when you see that on film, and you see guys like the burst and acceleration of guys when they get in the open field, and they have that. And that is something that I think probably, if we're looking at it, and when I don't see that from someone, that is, red flaggy to me at receiver. But seeing that was something that made me think, like, he's got a chance to be a lot more than what he's projected to be by a lot of people right now.
How many times have you seen a receiver on an in route like that, an in breaker with the ball's coming hard? How many times have you seen them have to stop and kind of throttle down and catch that? Not so much with their body, but like slow down a little bit and make sure like I secure this catch. And what happens because they slow down, they get tackled, right? I thought this was like a superpower of Ge Wang, that old Miami wide receiver who played for the Colts. On that play, Devin Fitzgerald is running in route, and he's able to grab the ball, snatch it while he's running, and then continue on. And that means that the linebacker that's closing can't get there, and that means the corner that's closing can't close the space in time. And then they miss him, and he's off for 50 more yards. Like, that is a perfect example of a guy who plays faster. And we talk about play speed all the time. That's a guy that plays faster than someone who maybe runs a 4.4 because he has the hands and the strength in his hands and the belief in his hands that he doesn't have to throttle down when he catches the ball, right? I thought this was someone like, and this player is definitely faster than him, but like Braden Lenzy, when he played, he was a guy that didn't have belief in his hands like that.
Yeah.
And the reason that he was never a good run after catch guy is because like he always had to throttle down. He always had to body catch to make sure that he caught it. Right.
Yeah.
That slows you down. Right. And so like to me, Devin Fitzgerald, when we talk about playing fast, like there are so many instances where Fitzgerald catches the ball and the way that he catches it allows him to gain more yards because he can catch it away from his body and he can make moves while the catch is coming in. Like that's so important for a player who doesn't have the best 40 time to be able to do that. Now, the greats are like running 4.5 or 4.4 or 4.3, and they can catch the ball like that, and that makes them great, right? Ge Wang was probably more like a 4.4 guy. That's why he's a Hall of Famer. But like that's what I'm talking about with Devin Fitzgerald. It's like that's what he kind of brings, and that's what I think. Like it you see it in film, but you don't really identify it. And then when you see a play, and it's like that's what it is. That's how you become a better prospect than someone with whatever 40 time you have, you know, to be able to catch the ball like that. So it's just something that kind of pops for me. This is why the rankings are a sham, Jamie. You got to look at the tape. You got to study the tape. And this is why the Uyeyama is the best one, because he understands what it is he's looking for and he can identify it. The Uyeyama, you're good at evaluations, my guy.
Thanks for the kind words. Appreciate it. I do think too, because everybody's always looking for the next Tyreek Hill. Everybody's always looking for that guy.
Notre Dame's looking for him because they might let Braden Robinson.
Everybody wants that, right?
Why not both? Right? Why not both?
Yeah. Everybody wants that, but the reason why there's, only one Tyreek Hill and like probably the next closest thing is Jalen Waddle, ironically, both on the same team. Like, the reason why there's not many of those guys is because it takes a lot more than just being a burner to, make a huge impact. So I think it's really interesting because I think about Xavier Worthy, who, was a high pick for Kansas City, and they obviously want him to be Tyreek Hill. I don't think he'll ever quite. He's a weapon for them. He is like the guy runs a 4.2. Like he's
for sure
incredibly fast. But I do think like there's other pieces to it where strength, hands, all that kind of stuff. For the reason why that speed, he should be like you think that speed. This guy should be the most explosive weapon in the NFL, and maybe he will develop into that. But I'm going to guess probably not, because I don't think he has some of the other things. And there are all these kind of pieces for it too, which I think like Michael Thomas is a total perfect example to me. The guy, obviously Michael Thomas, who was with the Saints, played for Ohio State. He was a 3-star kid, coming out. I believe he was a 2nd-round pick. Was it, before injuries, I think he was like kind of on his way to like a Hall of Fame career. He was he probably had like a 3-4 year stretch where he was like top 3 receiver in the NFL. And he just had all of these things that he could do that made him better than so many other guys who just would destroy him at the combine. I think DeAndre Hopkins, similar to that too. Like, there's a lot of guys like that. And I think ultimately, like, Jaden Greathouse, how he can be like that. And I don't know what Jaden Greathouse is going to run when it's his time to play in the NFL. And I don't know if he's ever going to be like a dominant player in the NFL. We'll see. I think he's going to have a great year this year and be a really good, college football player for Notre Dame this year. But where you find it I would find it shocking if he wasn't a good pro.
Yeah.
Because of all these other little things that he does.
Yeah. You're looking to check all the boxes as a wide receiver and in your media company as well, Jamie. And you can do that with VSR Media. You can look no further than VSR Media, founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior, and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. Jamie, the Notre Dame football team, I don't know if it happened yesterday, but they've updated their roster and with number changes, heights and weights, things of that nature. Some interesting changes. Malachi Fields is wearing the number 0 along with Devontae Smith. Cam Williams has moved to number 5. Christian Gray is number 6, which is interesting. I'll tell you another one that's interesting. Leonard Moore back to number 15.
Yeah.
He was number 2. Back
I like
to number 15. What is going on there? What do you think about that about?
He was probably thinking, it was like, oh, I had the best freshman season maybe of all time for a corner. And then I was just like, yeah, I'm going to switch it up. Unless he was in love with the number 2. Keep it 15, my man. Like, hey, it looked good on you. Like, just you're resurrecting the number right there, right? Everybody knows about the previous struggles of the number. So I don't think there was any reason for him to change it unless he really like 2 is his number, is a special number to him.
Yeah.
So I get it. Or maybe somebody else really wanted to, and he was like, yeah, man, I'm good with 15. Believe it or not, there are people who really care about what number they have. There's a lot of guys who don't care at all. They don't care at all. There's a lot of people who just are like, hey, give me whatever. I don't care. I'm balling no matter what. Like,
yeah.
There's quite a number of those guys too.
I remember in high school, they were always kind of saying like, don't change your number, because when people watch tape, they know you as this number. It'll be hard for them to find you if you change it, right? I just thought that was kind of weird. Like, they're going to know who I am. Like, Leonard Moore doesn't have to worry about that. But I do like the 15. That's I think that's cool. Jerome Bettis Jr. is 15 now as well. What were we going to say?
No, I was just going to say, I think maybe back in that day, in our days when there was a grainy film where like they're watching it on VHS or whatever, maybe that was a good advice. I don't know, but I do want to point out, because the Jason Smith about Cam Williams with number 5. Some reason I do think that's a good sign.
I do too.
I know it's stupid. Am I admitting it's stupid? Yes, it's stupid.
I think it's a good sign as well.
But I can't help it. I think about that and I'm like, oh, he's changing to single digits. And they're like, hey, they're signing off on it. I think that means he's probably having a good summer. I kind of think that way. I kind of feel that way. I don't know.
It is true though. Like, Elijah Burris did take 17, which was his dad's number. So it's kind of like he switched numbers with Elijah Burris, and so he took number 5. He didn't have to take 5. He could have taken it. I do love like that
with his dad's number too.
I like it
because I'm big on that, because I was like, my dad's number was 8, and I tried to get 8, but they were like, my high school the guy who ran the jersey stuff was like, no, that's like a quarterback number, and I was like, come on, man. But But I went and my cousins were 42 and then I wore it. So it was like a tradition I was carrying on. Tradition there. I love that. Rocking his dad's number. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Tyler Buckner is number 10 now. It's notable. No one wants 26, man. No one wants 26. It's brutal. It's just, oh God, it's awful. Why don't you want 26 people? Like 25, Preston Zinter. It's like a linebacker backup. It's like a famous number in Notre Dame lore. I don't know. I wish it was more prominent. Anyway, anyone you want to who do you want to highlight first on some of these on some of these heights and weights? Someone that you kind of popped out to you.
Okay. I know a lot of people were talking about obviously Charles Jagasaw and Gerby Lambert, because those guys are monsters. Right?
333 and 341.
I get it. I get it why you would want to highlight those guys.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna pick some under the radar guys that I didn't see a lot of people talking about it. And I was planning on writing about it in Six Thoughts too, but well, one, I think some people have mentioned about Matt Fermo, who's up to 235. He was 228 in the spring. And I thought that was noticeable because I saw him obviously in the spring and I thought he looked thin at 228. I was like, man, this guy's going to get a lot bigger. And when I saw him just, walking around during Irish invasion, just kind of walking around campus, he looked good. I could tell he added muscle. So I'm that was something that I definitely monitored with him. Elijah Hughes up to 297 from 290. He's not a guy that a lot of people are talking about, but that's notable, right? Because I think a lot of people thought that, maybe this guy's a little bit undersized guy. I mean, 297, 6'3", 297, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. As long as he's still got those quicks.
What does that kind of mean to you for him in terms of like what he could be? Like what's the difference? Because what from what he did weigh and then what he kind of weighs now, like what does that kind of point out to you?
Well, I think he was like, last year, I think he was a guy who came in at USC and he was like around like 260-ish or something like that when he came in. So he's added all this weight and it's been good weight. Like he doesn't look sloppy or anything like that. And I think that's important because he's a guy with, smaller guy traits. But I think he needed to add more to be able to hold up a little bit better in the run game. And I also think, you can just say USC fired their, strength conditioning coach, and they brought in somebody else. So they obviously weren't happy with what's going on. And, Notre Dame's pretty happy with what's going on in their strength department. So I think that's something when we've seen with some of the gains from guys under Landau is that I think that could be like a really good thing. And so that is someone that I kind of want to, see how that looks on him. Right. So that was interesting to me. Joe Otting, not a guy a lot of people talking about. 312 up from 297. That is very interesting to me. Obviously, I think Ashton Craig is like 311. So it's like right up there with that. But Otting was another guy who was like, if you looked at him in high school, because he was a guy who like played basketball, he was track, he did all of these kind of things. And he was someone that people said, I don't think he looks like he's going to be like 270, 280, like they never thought that he could get to that. So I don't know. Cause sometimes guys do blow up and maybe it isn't all good. Chances are he's been on campus the whole time. So chances are that's probably pretty good weight. So I want to see it because I think that was probably one of the things that's holding him back. Just his weight in general, because he is probably one of the most explosive offensive lineman recruits that I can remember that Notre Dame landing. Maybe the most explosive, just in terms of just like his get off and everything. Like, man, he just was like crushing dudes. And so all of a sudden, I do not think that he's going to beat out Ashton Craig for the center job. And he's probably not going to play, at guard either, but maybe he is a guard. He can't play some guard now. Where before you just thought, he's just a center, right? Because he's going to be 290. He's 312 pounds. He could probably play guard. So that's something I think that is worth monitoring. Scrap Richardson. This was really good for me. He was skinny. He looked so thin in the spring. Loved the way he moved, but thought he was, he looked like very much a freshman, still a guy who should have been going to his prom still. And 185 from 169. And I do wonder if that is a little bit kind of like a Tay Johnson, because Tay Johnson came in and around similar weight. And you look at Tay Johnson now, and, I think he's like 193 or
193, yeah, 6'2", 193, yeah.
Yeah, and he looks like $1 million at 193. Like, he looks just put together. And so I want to see what Scrap Richardson looks like at 185, because I have a feeling he wasn't a guy who put in that much time in the weight room, didn't have probably the nutrition that probably got him to, being a track guy, doing all this kind of stuff. Now that he's like focusing just on ball, I mean, that could be a really interesting guy. I'm not to say that he's going to play this year or anything. I think there's obviously a lot of development that probably needs to be done. He was a guy who played quarterback, who, and DB. So still developing at the position. But that's something that I think is really interesting. Could maybe unlock some stuff there if he's making those kind of gains. Cole Mullins, I think too, coming off, the knee injury, he was 262 in the spring. I thought he looked great in the spring. He's up to 273, so up 11 pounds. I don't know how big Mullins is going to get. I'm going to guess he can get around 290-ish eventually. I think that, but I think it's worth noting, even though you'll see Bryce Young is, 270 or whatever he is, right? As an edge. And Chris Burgess is 270 as edge, which is another thing. We can get into some of those junior rollies in a little bit, but that to me, Mullins, because I know everyone's like, well, is he going to play? He should move to end because he played a little bit. And I do think he's an interior guy. And especially because, man, I watched him rush the passer from the interior in the spring and he looked dynamite. So I'm really high on him.
6'5" too, Jamie. He's listed. I mean, 273, he could put on more.
I think he easily can. Because I really think he was a lot lower body. Yeah. He's got big legs, but I think there's a lot he can add there. So that I think was a good sign that going in. And then, well, let me get it. Was there anybody who from you kind of stood out of those guys coming back? And then we can probably get into the June guys.
Well, I think, one is, Kedron Young. I wanted to talk to you about this. I've never seen him, look anything other than good in person, right? Like, he is always I've never been concerned about his size or anything like that. 242, Jamie. He's not a tall guy, right? Like, he's he's listed 5'11". He doesn't look 5'11" to me. He looks smaller than that to me. 242. What are you trying to be? That's my question here. Is how do you fit into? Because I always saw him as he's closer to Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price than he is. I felt like he was their replacement, and Aeneas Williams and Jabron Payne were always third down guys. So I kind of understood why Kedron Young would stick, because it's well, he's more of a feature back type. 242. What are you trying to be, man? Can you be the top running back at that weight, right? And maybe he's trying. Some guys really bulk up, and they know as the season goes on, and maybe once the season starts, they're gonna get slimmer, right? So maybe he plans on losing some weight to get down to 235 or something. But what do you make of this, Jamie? I like him. Every time I watch him, I like him. I think he's got some of the best feet. I think he plays with great pad level. I don't know what this means for his breakaway ability, but what do you kind of make of this?
It definitely, it was the same kind of thing where I have questions about it. And I want to see how he looks at that weight, because he already looked huge. He looked huge over 230 in the spring. So I'm really interested to see what he looks like, because there's just not a lot of backs out there that are 240 pounds. It's just not. It's just there's very few. Like you think of recent guys like Eddie Lacy types, that kind of thing. But I mean, obviously Derrick Henry, who's just a total freakazoid. But like, there aren't a lot of guys like that. So I'm really interested, because it definitely popped on my radar in kind of a questionable way. Like, I don't want to say it's bad yet, because I would like to see him, like especially with his lateral stuff, and how that affects him. But I just know too, like there's certain guys who you got to know what works for you, right? Like you got to know what works for you. And so Kyron Williams tried to bulk up and was like, I got to get bigger. I got to whatever. And then he just found out, he was like, no, I'm just not the same. I'm not the same guy. And then he cut back down. And then all of a sudden he was like, just became a star, right? Like that was just, it was the right thing for him and his skill set. So I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting. There's just not too many backs, like, AJ Dillon, like that kind of thing. Maybe he's like AJ Dillon, or I mean, it's certainly not bad if they had a AJ Dillon on the roster, right? So I don't know. We're definitely monitoring.
We're monitoring the Kedron Young situation there. I thought I was looking at Dallas Golden. He was kind of like a early enrollee guy. June, or not early enrollee. June, he wasn't an early enrollee. June enrollee guy coming in at 185. So that's basically like 2 pounds less than Christian Gray is at. And he's obviously going into his junior season, his true junior season. It's ready to go, in my opinion. Like if you're at 185, like Mark Zachary, I think was at 170. And it's like, to me, it's like, you need a year, right? Mark Zachary is going to need some time. I think if Dallas Golden's going to be at 185, I think that you can play at that. I mean, Christian Gray is playing at that. I think Christian Gray I think he needed to bulk up a little bit. And I wonder if he has done so in getting to that weight. But when you talk about, there's always someone, right, who comes in as a June enrollee, wasn't an early guy, and they kind of pop, right? I feel like Dallas Golden has a chance to be that at this weight, because I think it could be at a number of positions, right? And I think the fact that when you look at all of the DBs that they brought in, we've just been talking about that, like they have so many. It's like they could mess around with some of these guys on offense, right? Joey O'Brien's talked about it. Dallas Golden has talked about it. Jadon Blair played it as a scout team guy, which isn't to say he's going to. I think they'll probably stick on defense. But the fact of the matter is they've got a lot of versatile guys. I wonder, we're going to be monitoring Dallas Golden and what he's doing on the Notre Dame football team. I think at 185, he has a chance to do so. I want to get your thoughts on him as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good weight to come in at, right? So, provided that he's in great shape, but I haven't heard any. I've heard he's in good shape, so I haven't heard anything that's there. Because sometimes, obviously, DBs can get a little bit too, bigger than they want to be too, in that way. I think that is a really good sign, and I'm excited about that to kind of see where he's at. I mean, my question with him was less about obviously the physical and more about like learning the defense and doing and getting that, because that was one thing. That was the reason, as much as Morrison and Moore obviously have physical ability, those guys picked up the defense like this. Like they were just so fast. So that's going to be something that I think is going to be interesting with Golden to figure that out. Because, if he's a quick study there, I think physically he was always a guy that I thought could potentially play right away. I think with Zachary, the interesting thing is, well, I'll be interested to see that if, he's 170 now, and we know he might actually be 170 now. He might be 174 now or whatever, right?
Right.
But if he's like, what is he going to look like in August? Because some of these guys, when they get deeper into it, once they're in it, he obviously played basketball during the spring. What's that guy going to look like when he's got, a couple months into the strength and conditioning program and where he's at? But I would lean exactly what you were saying too. Probably when a guy comes in at 170 pounds and he's not an early enrollee. So the difference between like a Scrap Richardson who comes in at 169 and then he's 185. Not that I think Scrap Richardson is going to be ready to play from other perspective, but physically, I mean, he's going to be way more ready to play now because he was in the spring. So I'm Zachary. I want to see kind of, about that size and just how small he is. Cause there's not too many guys like that. That 170 is it's very hard to play at that weight.
It's tough. Yeah. Anyone else you wanted to highlight there?
Yeah, well, obviously I mentioned Burgess, so 270. That is something that I think everything I've heard is he looks good. He looks like a man, like a guy who's 2-3 years in the program. I think you got to kind of monitor, although he looked great on the edge, you got to kind of monitor. Maybe if a guy comes in at 270, is he going to be 290 plus? Is he going to be something? Because, I always kind of thought before, 2 years ago, I remember seeing him in person at, I think it was at Invasion. Maybe it was one of the other games, but it was at Invasion, I think. And he looked like he was 240 at that time. And I thought, man, this guy looks like he's going to just blow up and be huge because he was just had so much to gain. So I want to see what he looks like there and, how much I think he can gain. What's going to be that right spot for him in terms of his weight? That's going to be interesting to monitor. And then I think Dom Hulak coming in at 241, that's an encouraging thing. Because I think that was probably a goal of his to try to get to that 240-ish thing. I think he's eventually going to be, pretty similar to where say a Josh Burnham is right now, where he's I think Josh Burnham's 253. He's going to be a 250 to 255 type of kid, I think. And him coming in at 241 is really good. And he's an explosive athlete, a guy that I think is got a really high ceiling. And, I really want to see develop there as an edge. Will Black coming in at 305. Obviously that's a good thing for a guy. Unsurprising considering he was walking around at 290 for, probably most of the last year. So, but still coming in at 305, that's a really good weight to come in at for, a true freshman. Guys reporting in the summer. Anthony Saka at 244, too heavy.
Monitoring. Yeah.
Yes, 100% monitoring that. That's something that I think and sometimes it happens too, where guys are I want to be big. I got to get this and I got to try to check all these boxes and I want to be ready to play. And they think bigger is better. Look at he's the biggest linebacker on the team.
Yeah.
Just by weight and also I wouldn't say that he's where KVA could walk around at that weight and it looks more he can easily carry that pretty easy. And Saka, I don't think it's quite the same. I don't think he's got quite the frame. So I imagine that he's gonna shed a bit, and I bet he'll probably settle around 235-ish or something like that when it's all said and done. So that's something. James Flanagan coming at 237. 6'6", 237.
Yeah.
I heard he looks really good physically.
They've always been kind of bullish and kind of on background with him.
Yeah.
There's just always been kind of a rumbling about, Flanagan and what he can be and just kind of oh, he's coming in the wings. It's one of those things that was kind of always bubbling, kind of under the radar. But I think they're excited about him, kind of what you've been doing.
I think he's got a shot to play this year. I do think he's got a shot to play. So, obviously not be a huge contributor as a true freshman, but I think, plus I don't think he's going to be a guy who's he's not going to be a 5-year kid. He's going to be 3-4 years. He's that kind of talent, in my opinion. And then Gordy Solstead, like him coming in at 260.
So the injury,
coming off the injury, coming in at 260, he's obviously going to get. I heard he's like long and skinny right now. So if you're long and skinny at 260, that's a good sign. That's a really good sign. So he's obviously going to be an interior guy. I think he's going to be an interesting guy. He's obviously a developmental guy, but I really want to see where he's at. Not immediately. I don't expect him to, be turning a bunch of heads in fall camp, but I want to see where he's at. Like by the winter, in the spring, he's going to redshirt, right? So he's going to be a guy who's going to. I think he's going to be really interesting because I wonder if he's going to be like, pushing 290 by this time next year.
You just give yourself a chance, right? And that's kind of what he's done with his weight there. There's a few guys that are like that. Like Dallas Golden is a guy. Like just if you don't have, James Flammang is a guy. Like if you don't have that weight now, you're not giving yourself a chance, right?
Yeah.
And so Dallas, these guys have a chance now to pick up the offense or defense or whatever it might be. So we're going to be monitoring that situation. We can end it there. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll be back on Thursday with Christian to talk about the remaining prospects that Notre Dame has on the board for 2026. We'll get into the 2027 quarterbacks. We haven't got into that yet, Jamie. So we'll get into that, throw some film up of those guys, and then we'll discuss them. So it's going to be a good show on Thursday. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If you like what you heard, please hit that like. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so whenever it is we are going live. Have a good rest of your day. We'll talk to you on Thursday. Keep hitting and hustling.